are. This is the day dedicated to all the superheroes that make bad body work look good for the last 100 years.
Painter.
This is the painter. Huh. This is my home space. I'm feeling pretty comfortable here.
No one cares.
Right? You care.
No, I don't.
You care. All right, we have a jam-packed day for you, and everything that we're covering today is going to focus on the painter and the refinishing process through your shop. So there's this morning's episode, which we're going to get to the painter's role in blueprinting, which is often overlooked, especially in a lot of the training that's out there. Then we're going to kick into color mix, match, everything you need to know about what your mixing room should have, the selections, your personal protection. And then we're going to fall into this afternoon to the refinishing process where we're actually going to paint that bumper on that Toyota that we blueprinted back on Monday.
Your cycle time's terrible.
Well,
it's only 3 days to put a bumper on a car.
I know. I keep getting little phone calls asking when they can take the customer out of the rental car, but I told them somewhere around Christmas. The vehicle should
probably. Yeah, but we're getting paid $20,000 to put that bumper cover on the car.
Yeah. So we're just going to take our time. Real quick, and what I wanted to open with this morning. So Daniel, you run our 20 group, so our 20 group for our painters.
Yep.
And we are having some fantastic conversations going on in that group. And a lot of surprise aha moments. I think a lot of people thought when we opened a 20 group for painters, they went, well, what possibly could be learned there, right? And now everybody's flocking to your group. They're leaving mine.
Hey, I'm sorry.
So I'll take.
Well, and
we can try to
change
it.
And then how long did you spend on the call? We're like, is he done yet? Is he done yet?
It was only 2 hours. Yeah. But we have some guys that like to ask questions. That's what it's about, right?
Right.
Well, it's that whole new roller thing that he has to roll paint on, and it dries in 3 minutes, and you don't have to buff it.
Well, we are going to unveil a brand new roller product from SATA. No, I'm just kidding.
I'm still waiting for SATA to come out with the gun that sprays where you want it to. So I don't have to mask off cars anymore. It's directional paint flow.
No
so you just spray. No, just I spray like this. It goes inside the booth and just goes to wherever I need to. I don't have to mask anything off.
That's German engineering.
You don't have to wear a respirator either.
Yeah, you don't have to wear a respirator or nothing. Yeah.
So let's talk about...
We'll get on that. We're working on it.
Specifically, we're going to go back to our Toyota, which we're going to wrap up today. So in the blueprinting process Monday, we talked about how we were going to need, before we could wrap up this estimate and wrap up our repair plan, that we had to go meet with our painter.
Yep.
Well, because we're going to find out if we're going to blend onto the fenders. And I mean, obviously the hood's self-standing because the headlights and the grille block it out. So we wouldn't have to blend or even consider blending the hood. But blending the two fenders on that color may, and it does match up pretty well. The bumper cover does match up pretty well to it. So do we need to blend into the fenders? Do we not? And that brought up a whole bunch of other stuff with aiming headlights and some clips that were one-time use, or the moldings were one-time use. So that was an issue.
Took the job from being a relatively simple, easy, small job to something that got much bigger very quickly.
Yeah, it went from $10,000 to maybe $20,000.
Yeah,
I am interested in hearing after painting all these hot rods for all this time. Casey can put his body shop hat back on and start thinking about blending. As he works to be our painter today.
This is going to be the newest thing you painted in a long time.
When's the last time you touched a plastic bumper cover?
Probably the last time we made a video.
Well, he figures this way. I'm just going to paint the whole car candy, and it'll match.
Right.
There's no problem because it's another color to begin with.
Well, one of the things we're also running into in the real world is, let's just say you got a dent in the door, and it's a tri-coat. And we got to go now, we're going to obviously have to roll onto the fender. But if we have to roll onto the fender and we get too close to the A-pillar, now we're rolling up and over.
Right. So
how much time and let-down panels and different things can we do to spend to actually not have to go up and over and actually get the color to match? So one of the things on that estimating or the blueprinting process, we got to have the painter involved. Because they're like, oh, geez, if I did this, I could probably avoid all of that. But I need more time or whatever to make sure it works. So got to have the painter involved.
So Daniel, as I'm going to let you put a painter hat on. As a painter, for us as the estimators in the blueprint, when we bring you in, what are you wanting to tell us? What's the benefit to having my painter come in when I'm blueprinting the car?
Well, there's a lot of things, right? I'm sure Chris can jump in on this too, but right now everything can almost be considered a tri-coat to some extent, right? So we're going to have grounds for a lot of these. We covered this last night, and if you just say, oh, well, this is a blue car, no big deal. Well, if it takes a specific ground to match that, there's a whole other thing going on there. Not only that, but you start taking a car apart. What's the underhood sheen? What's the underhood color? Is it a two-tone? Is this thing using a ceramic clear coat like a Mercedes or a BMW? Now I have to start looking down that avenue. I'm going to probably scan this car at Blueprint and check my color match, look at my spectral curve. Am I going to need tint time, or how much am I going to need? There's so many things involved with this blueprint process that the painter absolutely has to be involved.
Right, so some of the things that Danny was talking about there means as the estimator.
Yeah, translate
right,
that.
Let me
Translate
translate. I am translate paint.
I'm not an estimator,
Right.
so I'm
Exactly.
just giving
No,
you. Right.
And that's why, but you don't have to be, because that's my job. So if I'm the estimator for the shop, my job is to take all of what it's going to take to fix the car properly and interpret that into lines on the estimate that get us compensated. So the only thing that brings money into a shop is the estimate. There's a lot of things that take money out the back door, but there's just one thing that gets money in the front door. So if I don't compensate all those lines on my estimate, we lose money, right? Because your time
gotta
is
do 'em,
money,
right.
and then the materials you're going to need is money. And so if I'm not doing that job, so what he was talking about when we're looking at spectral curves and tint time is he's got to come back to me and say, Chris, I see 3 different colors or sheens that I'm going to have to do. That's going to relate to these different times of operations. Larry, that's when you've been doing a lot lately in your estimating class, teaching people that's multiple mask, right? So I may have a couple different car covers. I may have a couple of different masking operations. So the paint times on the estimate that come in the estimating system, so the 2.4 to paint this bumper cover includes painting that bumper cover one time, or it includes painting that fender one time. It doesn't include all this other stuff I got to do.
Well, the application of the paint is probably one of the more easier parts. And I've joked before, the appliation of the paint I could almost teach a monkey to do, with regular standard colors. The problem
You
is...
notice that Casey is looking at you.
Here's the issue. I'm not talking candy, but, that's a fairly simple thing. You get the pressure right, and it's not a lot of big thing, especially when you're blending. The bigger issue is the preparation beforehand and the color mix and match and spray out cards that can take 5, 6, 7, and some of these variants, you have 12, 14 variants on certain colors. You have one variant, we have a problem, because you're never going to match it. You got 12 variants, at least I can pick 3 that are close that I can come up with, and then you see color mix and match, or I hate the word color tint, because you don't want to make a new variant, you go with the variances that you have, and, they put 0.5 for that. And you could easily spend 2 hours, 3 hours making spray out cards and mixing and matching, get the color, color hit the right way, and then you could paint another car in the same color from the same manufacturer, same year, paint it the next day, and go, oh well, I just mixed this yesterday. Oh wait, it doesn't match that well. I may have to play around with a different variant because it was built, I don't know, 3 months later, and the paint company that they bought the paint from made a different batch, and you see 0.5 on this, and then the painters in the booth.
The next 2 days.
Next 2 days
Right.
trying to match the color or something. That's where this real issue comes from. That's why I need to talk to my painter to
Yeah.
find out how bad is this color? Oh, this is a nightmare. This is going to take me a while, so I need to adjust my estimate that way versus a silver Mercedes-Benz. And be like, what are you kidding me? I can mix that blindfolded.
Right.
Well, the other thing, just real quick, that you want to think about too is some of these complex colors, 46G, 46V. Certain paint manufacturers have a really involved process for this, where you're spraying a seal, getting a base,
You know what I
clearing
was
it,
about to
sanding
ask
it. Is
Chris.
that what you're going to ask
Yeah,
him?
so Chris made a fantastic, some of you may recognize him, Chris made a fantastic video series before he joined SATA, when he was at a paint company, on the preps for these and what we were doing for some of these colors, and I learned a lot from that video series. But can you talk a little bit about now how panel prep has changed because of color?
Well, yeah. So the way that we're moving with different special effect aluminums and pearls, you've got the 46G, 46V with the vacuum metallized flake. They're now telegraphing prep where if you're not prepping to finer grits, going extremely fine, even beyond where we normally were. If we didn't want to seal, we'd finish in 400 or 600. Now we're getting all the way down to 1500, 2000, 3000 before we're applying some special effect base coats.
So
And go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, but my paint times basically tell me to prep a new and undamaged panel, which is take it out of the box, basically, and scuff it, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Which
So
And that's based on
a no
all
one
the
damage.
prep we used to do,
Right.
where some of these special effect colors is doubling our prep time just because
Well, that-
we have to be more meticulous and more detailed.
So now I got to think through those steps. So if that might have been 400 before, take a red or a gray scuff pad, scuff the
Yeah.
panel, and we're good to go. Now I've got to sit down and ask the painter, how many more steps is this? How many more grades to get to where you need to go? And I got to manually calculate what that additional refinishing time is going to be on this estimate.
Well, even for the blending of a panel, we had CCC answer the question that prep to a new undamaged panel. And the big issue is you take like the Dodges or the Jeeps, they have a very heavy orange peel. and you really got to make sure you smooth out the panel properly so that the paint adheres correctly, versus a car that doesn't have as much orange peel to it. So there's additional steps that are needed, and they said that's not an included operation. We're still trying to work with the DEG on the other estimating systems. The other big issue is what I know from an estimated point of view, or teaching estimating, is you need to talk to your painter is, okay, what's the blend process on this panel? Okay, because blending a panel takes more than painting or just shooting a regular panel that's E-coated. And we finally got one estimating system to admit to it. The issue comes in, am I just sanding with a scuff pad? Am I sanding with two different scuff pads? Am I sanding with a scuff pad and then maybe up to 2,000 sandpaper so that I don't have any scratches or it lays out better? And we don't know this stuff. Just like here, you guys just mentioned a couple of paint coats. I'm sure the painters out there know what that is. Guess who doesn't understand that?
The
The estimators. So what cars are those for?
Right.
You're blasting out, KG9 and stuff like. Okay, what car is that for? What color is that?
Right.
Because they're not going to have a clue. Because I'll tell you this much: 99% of the time, and it's a pet peeve of mine. We're going to talk about this in the estimate review classes that I send an estimate back. I won't even look at it. You're missing the production date in, the mileage in, and the paint code. If it's not on there, I send it back. I'm not looking at it. You're already wrong. So I'm going to send back that estimate. So the paint codes aren't on there. These guys have no clue what it is. They go, it's blue, it's black, it's green. But what is it, 3-stage? I mean, the estimates I see that are 3-stage, and they don't have 3-stage on there. And that calculates differently in the estimating system.
Well,
Yeah.
it's different for some. So there are some paint companies that something may decode as a tri or a quad, but the application process is not that.
And that's why you got to talk to you guys.
Right. So that's why I'm bringing that painter in early.
Some are easily identifiable, right? Like it does look like a 3-stage candy, but something like 46G,
Which is
it's
what?
You could call it a quad coat in some paint lines.
Yeah.
And some it's a tri
Okay, guys, just for the audience,
Right.
what manufacturers are we talking about?
Right. What color is that? What
Is that a
color?
Mazda?
Oh,
Is
it's
that a
Mazda.
Mazda?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yes, I know we've been down
I
this
just
road
feel
before,
like
but I know everyone does
46V has gotten so common, like it's
Yeah.
a commonplace to talk about.
It's commonplace with painters,
Right.
but
With
not
painters,
commonplace with
estimators.
estimators.
But not
it's
with really
replaced a couple
estimators.
of F words
Yeah.
instead of.
I mean,
but my
yeah.
point, Larry, is that it may not necessarily look like a special color when it comes in, but the process
is.
behind that color
Right,
and
it
having
might
the
be.
painter involved, it's so easy for us to walk up to something and go, yeah, I know I already got a code that's going to be easily blendable,
But it
or I
could be
can
a
panel match that.
toner that they don't even
Have.
have.
Yes.
And now it could be a 2-week or a 2-week process to get that toner. So
Right.
I think your line where the time to find that out is not when it's in the booth.
Right.
That's
Correct.
Probably the best
And so there's also there's the extra labor operations that I may need, right? And I got to talk through. It's not the painter's job to be an estimator. That's my
No.
job. It's the painter's job to tell me what he's got to do, and then
I have to
now-
gather the information from
Yep.
the painter so I can ascertain or determine what I need to charge.
And I got to do that
for
in the blueprinting phase before the car goes through the shop. And then now, material availability with COVID is not what it used to be. But there are some toners that were never just readily available either. So now you're going to go get, as a painter, you're going to come get that color code, right? And you're going to go back and tell me if we're good to go or whether we're not good to go, right? If I have a material availability issue.
Right, for sure. And the other thing that factors into this is these specialty toners in most cases are not cheap. So you're making the spray out card, you're making this letdown panel on Mazda 46V. It's a costly spray out. It's not $5. I mean, you're talking about a die load that is extremely costly. And not only that, but the time to do this quad coat letdown is extensive.
Right. I think every time I pull that trigger, it's $20, $40. You know, as I'm going through that. Now, some other things that we have to think about from the painter's perspective that the estimator may not be thinking of is mills. So what's the thickness? And the painter's got to come up there with a paint gauge and tell me where we're at, specifically if we're looking at blending. Do I have the ability to blend on that panel and not exceed a manufacturer's either 19 mil requirement or whatever that is, and I need the painter to help me with that.
Well, a really good thing that we did, I think maybe 2 or 3 C20 refinishes back, was teaching guys how to understand their mill rates, right? So you should have spray out cards in your shop, one of sealer, one of base coat, one with base coat and sealer, everything broken down. So I know that when I apply this paint with this proper gun, this is the mill rate I'm going to get. So in the event you get a Cadillac CT6 in, and you know where your parameters are for refinishing this cover, okay, I have documentation on what this clear does, what this base coat does. So I know where my mills are going to fall if I have to repaint something that's on the edge every time.
Right. Hey, I think there's a lot of us that we used to think that the simplest thing in the shop was the paint, right? If I could get the quarter welded on, if I could get the rivets right, if I could get, the rest of that. Once I
We
kicked
can
it
get
to
it
paint,
straight.
woo!
Smooth sailing over there.
right? And there's so much more involved in the refinishing process that as an estimator, if I don't think about that, I'm costing the shop a lot of money. I mean, in case, just out of the top of your head, what do some of these toners run?
Well, that's a tough question because you can have a $90 toner, you can have a $1,500 toner. I mean, it's that extreme, and it really depends on the refinement process and what that toner is. I mean, some of these, just back to 46V again, that red dye is not cheap by any means. You can be $800 for a bottle of that.
Right. And is there such a thing as a simple color anymore? I mean, or is it? I mean, is white and black? I mean,
No.
there's nothing.
No, because the only way the OEMs differentiate themselves from each other is by doing something different, something flashy, something catchy that sells to the customer. So that the bland colors are just your rubber stamp production colors don't really exist like they used to.
There's nothing out of the can anymore, and I've had conversations with estimators and painters before about that, and then you see an incorrect color painted on there that I just took the black and just poured it out of the can and just sprayed it. It's like, okay, well that's brown black and this is
just
black and blue black, and it just doesn't match.
There's 3 black shirts.
Yeah.
Well, you're right.
And you have then you have the issue with blending and stuff like that. It's like, you got to reduce enough of the clear so when you do paint over the top of it, it's somewhat undetectable if someone goes around with a paint mill gauge to see what the mill thickness is. Because if it's a standard from the factory it's 4.7 to 5.2 mils, and now all of a sudden I've got 5, 5.2, 5.3, 4.7, 11.7. Oh, hang on a second.
Yeah.
This panel was
Oh, wait,
blended.
wrong call.
We have an issue here. So that's another important thing, and I have it on every one of my estimates. I know you've been in a few of the 20 groups, and like my second thing to do after OEM repair information charge is to do a mill thickness check around the car. One, it protects you because was it repaired already? If it was repaired already, maybe it's incorrect, maybe it's correct. But what areas were painted? And if I'm at 11 mils or 12 mils on a panel, and I'm gonna have to paint on top of that panel, I gotta make sure my painter and my prep guys know they have to reduce enough of that material, because if I go to 14, 15 mils and my paint delaminates and I call you up and say, hey, Daniel, I got this paint here from such and such a company, and they, it started delaminating, it started doing this, and you come in there and you put your mill thickness gauge in there and go, there's 26 mils on here, they're not gonna guarantee it, you left too much paint on there.
Yeah, and sanding a panel down to reduce mill thickness for a blend or something like that is a much more surgical procedure
Yes.
than just grabbing a DA. And
Well,
doing
it's
that.
like I've said to people before in classes. I said, look, it's great to have your kid come in on the weekend or something like that. And you run a paint shop, and listen, I'm sure you'd let a friend or a kid, your son or something like that, come in and sand a panel that you're fully painting. He can't screw it up, but you're never going to let him touch a blend panel, because if he sands that edge too much, now I got to paint that whole panel. It's not, so you want to have your 14, 15-year-old kid and his friends come in. It's like, oh, I'm doing a restoration on this car,
Yeah.
and it's all it's all primer. Just, scuff the primer and stuff, and you
Casey
can
won't
never
even let us
screw.
use his bathroom. That's what's in the shop. He's just like, you guys got to get out of it, right? I got work to do. I got stuff.
But you're not letting anybody touch a blend panel.
Yeah.
Or an eco panel. You can sand that almost any way you want. I got to still got to put sealer over it. But a blend panel takes that much more care and time. And especially, like you said before, with all the different metallics and the prism effect that they want out of these things nowadays. Now what do we do? How many times you paint candy? And I remember years ago, and I haven't painted in years, so I don't know if it's still the same process. When you put your base coat down to the whatever metallic it is, you had to go over it. John Kosmowski used to say, and wipe it over, because you had to break off. Some of them land perpendicular, and it would give you a screw-up paint job. And so you have to make sure they all lay down flat and stuff. It's like, we're almost that way with standard colors on, factory cars.
What was once custom.
What was once
It's
custom
here
now.
and a rarity, now almost like some of these painters have to be a little customized in that, and like you said before about the 3-stage or 4-stage. I might have something listed as a 3-stage because I Googled it as an estimator.
Well, it comes up as that in the estimating system.
Oh, sometimes in the estimating system, or I Google it and I said, I just want to be sure I'm not. Oh yeah, it's 3-stage, and then all of a sudden I talk to my painters. I know it's 4-stage, man.
Well, and then here's
You know?
some of the friction points that come up. And so this is about the estimators, and it doesn't all the. There's so much available on the internet these days Whereas something decodes as a 3-stage, the shop lets it roll, lets it do all that calculation. Some adjuster watches a video in which one particular paint company says, oh, no, for us, this is a 2-stage process.
Yeah.
But they're missing what Chris was talking about, all the prep that went around to make that a 2-stage process. So
Right.
I need to be able, as an estimator, to be prepared and to have those conversations. That's my job. My job is making the sale and getting the money in the door, right? Your job's painting the car and getting it out and the color matches and everything looks good. And we have to interpret. But conversations between estimators and painters, well, conversations between anybody in the shop and the painter, usually, are sometimes are strained conversations. So as a painter, what are some of the tips for estimators to communicate with painters? Do we just need to ask a lot of questions, or do we need to train them, the painter, on what we're looking for from them?
I think that there's a lot of intermixing there, and it has to go both ways. And the thing that I'm a big proponent of is, the mixing software you have in your shop as a painter. Your paint company can put that on any computer in the shop. So I think there's a lot of value in, okay, I'm the painter, I can take and install this on the estimator's computer. He can come in, the car comes in, put the code in, and I can teach him pretty quickly how to identify, is it a tri-coat, is it a quad coat, is this a standard base clear? I can also teach him, there's a lot of variances on this. You can make the judgment of, this is probably going to be a tough color for this guy, or it's not. If I have a standard and an all, I might be in good shape here, but if I have
40
a standard
variances,
and, yeah, 40 variances, well, this might be trouble for the painter.
Yeah.
Okay.
And also during those times, it's going to throw up that flag of, is it a limited use toner where
Right.
it's something that's not on the mixing bank that
Right.
we're going to need to get brought in.
And that's a great point from Chris too, and we talked about this last night. I mean, all these specialty toners, all the paint companies have them. And not only do they have them, they also have a list of the codes that require these. So estimators should have at their desk all the manufacturers, these are the codes that take these specialty toners, so I know if I schedule Mrs. Jones's car, we're probably not gonna have this toner, we gotta special order this.
And if I have to order that for that one car that comes in, that's a huge chunk to me as a shop. That really drives the profitability on that car down almost to the floor.
Right.
Right. So I may have to think about compensation for that. It may be one of those things where I go, I had to buy this for Miss Smith's car, and it's going to leave with her. I know she doesn't want it, right? What's she going to do with a single toner? But I'm not gonna. I can't really. I don't know. Was it like an atomization? I can't write that off over a series of the next year. I don't know when.
Right,
I
I
don't
wanna
know
see
when that
what's
next color's going to come in, right?
It's an oddball color. Here's your can of paint, or
Yeah.
I'll keep it here for you, and it's yours. And
Yeah.
you can hit again, but
Well, I'm okay to put it in the car in a little bucket and go, here, it's yours, it's fine. Or as the insurer can come pick it up and then they can pass that a toner around the rest
Yeah.
of the body shops in town if they need to.
But I also think just on the painter to estimator portion, I think that painters should bring the estimator down to the paint shop for a couple days and kind of show them, this is some of the stuff we have to do. This is some of the processes. Because many times the estimator wasn't a painter and they just aren't familiar with some of the
Most
processes.
of the time, not many.
Yeah,
So
most of
yeah,
the
if
time.
you get them down for a week or get them down for a job or so, and kind of show them this is how a tri-coat works, and this is what I have to do to make this great for when you deliver it.
Yeah, it's just so much more complex. I think of, me in the 80s, there was, I had a book and a 3-ring binder, and I'd go out and then you'd mix something up and you'd paint it, but everything kind of painted the same. And unless you had some weird yellowy gold, we never had a whole lot of problems, but painting is nothing like it was then. But we're still using the same paint formulas for estimating. So it's still basically a square foot method on a panel, and that pumps out a paint time. And that doesn't account for special materials, special prep and procedures, multiple maskings, all the things that we need to do that are hurting shop profitability. We don't mind doing all of these things when we're compensated for them. We mind it when we're not compensated for them, and I'm struggling with a color, and I'm trying to get the car out the door, and all those frustration and stress points that happen in the body shop, which then probably leads to a lot of those body shop versus paint shop versus body fights that we have, because I can't make a check as a body man until you get that car back to me so I can reassemble it, and so we're all standing and go, when are you gonna have that done?
And there's painter involvement too in the body side now. You look at Toyota, I can't just put, you shouldn't do it anyway, but Toyota specifically, I can't put body filler over bare metal.
Right.
The painter's got to get involved, get the epoxy on, there's masking time, there's all these other things involved where the painter's also getting involved with body.
no, you don't have to do that. I've been doing this 30 years. Who reads procedure? What, I got to read a procedure about putting body filler on a panel that I make good time on because I can, I got paid 100 hours on it. I can do it in 10 hours.
It's
I
just
got
that-
to put
yeah.
epoxy primer?
It's just it's a whole different scenario, and why you know, I think a lot of people would have never thought to involve their painter in the blueprint process, but we have. And so so we're going to wrap up with our Toyota. So if you notice in the show, when we were blueprinting initially on the Toyota, we had a lot of discussions about, did we need to, you know, we think we want to blend these fenders. Do we need to pull these fenders? Is the painter going to want them pulled? And do I need to accommodate the time on that? Or am I going to blend those fenders as is on the car? Well, we met with Daniel and Casey, and they looked at that color and went, oh, God, no, I don't want to get into those fenders. So we're going to add a little extra time for some color tint, give them a little bit more mixing time, and have that on the estimate. And we're just going to paint the bumper cover.
So now it's only 10 grand for the bumper instead of 20.
Yeah, right. We took a little bit of money
I'll
off.
take a little bit off.
But also that it decreases for me as a shop what I have to warranty. So as soon as I blend those fenders, I'm now on them.
Well, it's
Right?
well, it's warranty exposure, and then it's all the buffing and everything else that goes with it. We're going to contain it right to the bumper.
Right. It's like a snowball. Once I touch a panel, it goes
It keeps
forever.
going.
So
And if it
we're-
doesn't match, don't worry about it. We'll just wet the car down, give it back to him at night. And let him notice it. They'll be miles away before it's
No, you got to let it breathe for 2 minutes. It'll match later.
So the last class.
Do I paint in a perfect environment?
Right. The last class tomorrow, Larry, is final QC and delivery to the customer, and I'm going to explain how you go out and tell the customer their bumper never matched anyway.
Right, yeah.
So how you talk them into taking
Exactly.
that.
It's painted in different states.
Correct, yeah.
And then they ship it because it's practical to ship it from like Arkansas to Michigan to put the bumper on them because that makes sense.
The favorite thing that an estimator always does is wait until it's in the parking lot to explain the delivery process, right? So
No, the easiest thing for me to do is don't worry about it. It doesn't match. You know what? Why don't you bring it back tomorrow? He didn't read the fine print that says we have a 400-year, 400,000-mile warranty or until the taillights we can't see anymore. And he doesn't read that fine print. Or it's to leave the block, you know. Once you leave the block, that's it. You know, you're done. That's it. The warranty's over.
all right, so we are back here at 11:30.
For what?
And so at 11:30, we're stepping off for the day. And
I want
Daniel-
to get drunk and
Daniel,
smoke cigars.
no. Daniel and Casey are going to be taking over with the SATA guys and taking us through color mix match application. We're going to start that at 11:30. At 2:30, while they're working in the background, our jobber, so NCS, National Coating and Supplies, has flown in and to have a little bit of a conversation about the role the jobber plays in all of this and what your jobber should be doing working with you. We're going to talk about material management so that hopefully you don't have those, oh crap, it's already in repair process and I don't have something I need moments, and then we'll come back to you back.
What, you want to
forward.
pre-plan
Right.
stuff?
We're gonna plan some stuff, so that's gonna be amazing. So we will see you all back at 11:30 live, and we are simulcasting across SATA and BASF and NCS and our social media channels. So there's a lot of different ways that you can watch the show. So we will see you at 11:30.
See you.
Thanks.